You've seen it, right? If you've been on the internet at all lately, it's impossible to miss. Influencers, pro athletes, biohackers, they're all wincing and gasping as they sink into a tub of ice-cold water. The cold plunge has absolutely exploded. It's gone from this kind of niche practice to a massive wellness trend, with people claiming everything from lightning-fast muscle recovery to a totally unbreakable mindset. It is everywhere.
So, you gotta wonder, right? Is there any real science behind this shivering trend? Are we looking at a genuinely powerful tool for improving our health, or is this just the latest social media craze? A very, very cold placebo effect. Well, that's exactly what we're here to find out.
In this explainer, we're going to cut through all that noise. We'll look at where this trend came from, dive deep into what's actually happening in your body during that initial shock, and check out the hard data on athletic recovery. Then we'll explore the science behind its effect on your mood, give you a practical guide based on what the research says, and finally deliver a verdict on what's real and what's just hype. Let's get into it.
All right, so first things first, we need to be clear about what we're actually talking about, because the cold plunge is really just one piece of a much bigger and much older puzzle.
The official term is cryotherapy. It's a fancy word, but the idea is simple, using low temperatures for some kind of therapeutic benefit. This could be anything from reducing pain and swelling to some pretty big claims about your overall well-being. And believe it or not, this is not new. The basic idea goes all the way back to ancient Greece. And people do this in a whole bunch of different ways. The one you see all over social media is cold water immersion. That's your classic ice bath. Then there's something called whole body cryotherapy, which uses super cold, dry air in a special chamber. Some athletes really like contrast water therapy, where they switch between hot and cold. And then, of course, you've got the stuff you can do at home, like just taking a cold shower or slapping an ice pack on a sore knee. Okay, so no matter how you do it, what is actually happening inside your body when it gets hit with that intense, shocking cold? Well, it's a pretty dramatic event, and it's all managed by your body's master control system. And that control system is your autonomic nervous system, or ANS. The easiest way to think about it is as your body's autopilot. You don't have to tell your heart to beat or your stomach to digest food, right? The ANS just handles it all in the background, and it's basically split into two main parts that are always in this kind of tug of war. The best analogy is a car. You've got the sympathetic nervous system. That's your gas pedal. It's your fight or flight response. It revs everything up, heart rate, energy, alertness when you're stressed. Then you have the parasympathetic system. That's the brake pedal. This is your rest and digest mode. It slows things down, helps you relax, and conserves energy. A healthy, resilient body is one that can switch between this gas and brake pedal smoothly. So when you plunge into ice water, your body has no idea you're doing it for wellness. It just thinks, danger, survival mode. And what does it do? It slams that sympathetic gas pedal to the floor. Your heart rate shoots up, your blood vessels clamp down to keep your organs warm, and you get that uncontrollable gasp for air. That whole experience is the cold shock response. But that's not all. As your body panics and tries to warm up, it activates a special kind of fat called brown adipose tissue, or BAT. See, unlike regular fat that just stores energy, this brown fat burns energy to create heat. It's a process called thermogenesis. Now, this is where a lot of the weight loss claims come from. And while it's true that this process happens, the jury is still out on whether a few minutes of shivering in a tub is enough to cause any significant weight loss. The calorie burn is pretty modest. Now, that intense physical reaction is exactly why athletes started paying attention to this stuff years ago. The theory was simple, that shock to the system could help knock down inflammation and help you recover faster from a hard workout. It's probably the #1 claim you hear about cold plunges, so let's see what the science actually says. Okay, before we get to the juicy results, we have to quickly talk about how scientists even measure this. When they look at a ton of studies all at once, they use a metric called the standardized mean difference, or SMD. All you need to know is that it's a way of figuring out how big of an effect something has. Is the benefit basically nothing, or is it small, moderate, or large? That number tells us the real story. And when you look at the data, the results are pretty darn clear. This chart shows the effect of cold water on that delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, that feeling you get a day or two after a tough workout. What a big review found was a moderate effect on reducing that soreness, both 24 and 48 hours later. So this isn't just in people's heads, it's a real measurable benefit. But here's the crucial point. The benefit is real, but let's keep it in perspective. It's not a magic bullet. A moderate effect is good. It definitely helps, but it's not going to completely erase all your soreness. Think of it as a helpful tool in your recovery toolbox, not a miracle cure. And there's a really important but here. a potential trade-off. See, part of how our muscles grow bigger and stronger is through inflammation after a workout. That inflammation is actually a signal to the body to rebuild. Well, since cold plunges are so good at reducing that inflammation, some research suggests they might actually get in the way of those long-term muscle and strength gains. So the thinking is, it could make you feel better today at the potential cost of some gains tomorrow.
Okay, so we've talked muscles, but the claims go way beyond that. A lot of people talk about this incredible mood boost and feeling more resilient to stress. To understand that, we have to go right back to the autonomic nervous system. The theory is that by willingly putting yourself through this intense but controlled stress, you're basically training your nervous system to handle all stress better. Plus, it triggers this huge release of brain chemicals like norepinephrine and dopamine, which are key for focus, mood, and motivation. So, how do you measure nervous system health? Well, researchers can use something called the Autonomic Nervous System Index, or ANSI. It boils down a ton of complex heart rate data into one simple score. Honestly, just think of it like a credit score for your nervous system. A higher number is better. It means your body is good at shifting between that gas and brake pedal when it needs to.
And this is where it gets really interesting. A recent study from 2024 took a group of patients and had them do a series of whole-body cryotherapy sessions. After just 10 sessions, they found a significant, measurable improvement in their nervous system's overall control. That ANSI score went up. It's a sign that their bodies were becoming better regulated and more resilient.
But here's the kicker. The researchers tested two different temperatures, a crazy cold -110 Celsius and a much milder -55 Celsius. And the surprise? The positive change happened at both temperatures. This is a huge deal because it suggests you might not need the most extreme, bone-chilling cold to get some of these awesome neurological benefits.
Okay, so we've seen there's some real science here for both recovery and mood. Which brings us to the obvious next question. How do you actually do this? Let's try to build a practical guide based on the protocols that researchers are using in these studies.
First, let's just compare the two big methods. Cold water immersion is, of course, way more accessible. You just need a tub or a lake. But water pulls heat from your body like you wouldn't believe, so it can feel incredibly intense. Whole-body cryotherapy, on the other hand, needs a special, expensive chamber. It uses dry air, which, weirdly enough, often feels less shocking than water, even though it's technically colder.
So what do these research protocols actually look like? Well, for athletic recovery, a really common temperature range is between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius. That's about 50 to 59 Fahrenheit. So yeah, it's cold, but maybe not quite the solid block of ice you see on Instagram. The duration is usually somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. For mental benefits, some protocols go as short as 2 to 3 minutes. If there's one big takeaway from all the research, it seems to be that consistency is probably more important than just going for the absolute coldest temperature you can stand.
And we absolutely have to talk about safety because this is no joke. That cold shock response puts a massive strain on your heart. So, number one, first and foremost, talk to your doctor, especially if you have any history of heart issues or high blood pressure. Number two, start slow. Don't go from 0 to a 10-minute ice bath. Get your body used to it with, say, 30-second cold showers. And number three, and this is a big one, never, ever do it alone. The risk is real, so always have someone there with you. Okay. We've looked at the trend, the science, the data on recovery, and the effects on our mood and nervous system. Now it's time to put it all together and draw a clear line between what the science actually supports and what's still mostly hype.
So what's the final verdict? Well, what science clearly supports is a moderate drop in muscle soreness after you exercise. We've also seen good evidence for a measurable, positive shift in your nervous system's balance, which is linked to being more resilient to stress. And on the mental side, the simple act of facing that intense discomfort can be a really powerful way to build discipline. Now, what's still in the hype category? The idea that it's a miracle for weight loss. The brown fat activation is real, but its overall impact is still really debated. Then there's the whole immune booster claim. While some very specific studies have shown that a combination of cold, breathing, and meditation can have an effect on inflammation, the science is far from settled on it being a universal immune booster for everyone. And maybe most importantly, this is absolutely not a replacement for the basics: getting enough sleep, eating well, and exercising.
And that really leaves us with one last question to think about. After looking at all the evidence, the moderate physical benefits, and the measurable neurological shifts, you have to wonder, is the biggest benefit of doing this something we can even measure in a lab? Or is it that simple, powerful psychological win, the feeling of teaching yourself to stay calm when your body is screaming at you and proving to yourself that you can overcome something really, really hard?
Maybe the real magic isn't just in the body or the mind, but somewhere in between.